Thanks so much. I feel honoured to have a double intro, sort of high expectations. But okay, you're thinking about acquiring a business, or perhaps you have acquired a business. So what next? How can you really juice up your growth prospects? Maybe get some quick runs on the board. How can you augment your no doubt considerable and impressive business nous to recognise and realise latent value? Sometimes that could be sitting right in front of your nose, hiding in plain sight, through taking a customer and market perspective. I want to share with you a number of stories today. Hopefully it'll build the case of why in connecting with customers should form an intrinsic part of your strategic, creative business thinking on an ongoing basis, not just at the start. So what I mean by customers, there's current customers and there's also potential customers. So current customers, as in the case of Luke's scenario, is a rich wealth of knowledge. Let's go talk to our customers, the people we're currently connecting with. But there can also be potential customers. Sometimes your current customers, you may be really well locked down with them and doing great, but you've actually gone as far as you can with them. The growth potential is limited. Sometimes your current customers also, I've seen businesses that will literally die as their customers die. If they don't adapt, they have to somehow connect with new customers. Sometimes opportunities may actually be, the immediate opportunity may be with customers that are not your current customers. There's no right or wrong here, but it's a case of always having a viewpoint of who are we connecting with and who should we or could we be connecting with, and with what? How do we go about that? A lot of business strategy obviously happens inside rooms and whiteboards and sessions, and when we create this sort of brand new strategy, but sometimes you can call that the immaculate conception. You know, there's no customer involved in it. You want to get your thinking together, absolutely, but get your what ifs. What if we did this? What if we connected with those people? What if we actually tried this, and then get the hell out of the ranch? The answer's not going to come from inside the meeting room. Now, in terms of research, this is my thought, and a lot of strategists, there's been debate in strategy world around this. You won't find the answers in research, you'll find the clues. Be research informed, don't be research led. Some categories like FMCG, the major players, they each have excellent market research companies. So in those sort of categories, you can assume that if they're all studying the same customer groups, they're going to come to some fairly similar insights. You absolutely do market research, but you want research to inform your business nous. You want to actually use it as a platform to jump off, not be a box that you're locked inside of. Ultimately, it's about confidence through evidence. Sometimes businesses, obviously there's some strong personalities can be involved and they can be convincing and they have great ideas, but you want that confidence to be grounded in some actual evidence that you're onto something. If you don't have the evidence, then you're either a genius or you run the risk of being arrogant and missing the mark. So you want to have some evidence to power up your thinking, and it's really invigorating. When you get some evidence that your idea is right, it becomes really stimulating. You actually know, I'm onto something here. We've got something as a team. Luke shared something, he experienced that himself, that the customer said, what you're doing here is really amazing. It's really stimulating. It also helps people grab hold of things and helps people let go of things. Some people have firm beliefs and understandings, and this is part of the issue with Luke's team as well, is that we want to validate what they're thinking is absolutely right. We also want people to maybe be confronted with some evidence that maybe there is something we can move away from. I dealt with a business owner who was convinced he was going to build an app for his customers and it's going to just go great. And he literally had a contract signed for like $60,000 worth of app development. But we actually said, okay, cool, but let's just prototype that, get up in front of our customers and see what we think. And it got torpedoed. The customer said, I love all this stuff, but the app, nah, don't bother. And the boss was ultimately, I can actually save myself 60 grand now. He was able to walk away from something he was so passionately selling previously. Both pre and post acquisition, I really encourage you to get some insights quickly. to understand where you are and where you could be, then look for some quick wins. In the first sort of 18 months, 2 years, how can we actually quickly get some runs on the board based on the insights we've got? And then, once you've done that, start to look for some more bigger strategic plays, bigger growth opportunities in line with your thinking as it's developed. So I'm going to share 3 stories. 2 of them are Luke-centric. I first met Luke right down here in Queenstown with Go Orange, and then SSS Cybersecurity. And also I'm going to share a story. I've been working with Westgold Western Milk Products. So in here you've got a customer experience situation, you've got a B2B services provider, and you've got an export consumer brand wanting to go into new markets. So with Go Orange, how can we help a team rethink the customer experience in only one day? So what Luke reached out to New Zealand Trade and Enterprise when he was the GM of Go Orange, which was an adventure tourism business. They'd acquired a whole lot of businesses and put Luke in charge of it to say, go grow that, please, Luke. And we got the team together, and Luke got us involved. We spent just a morning taking the team through Design Thinking 101. And I'm sure a number of you are familiar with design thinking principles. The way I think about it, it's an excellent way to accelerate and de-risk innovation through having strong customer connection. And so we took the team through the design thinking. This is what it's about. This is how it works. And Luke said, look, what we need to do is actually, we've just acquired Thunderjet. Now, these are now part of the Real NZ, the Real NZ branding. You'll see them right on the waterfront of Queenstown. And so they'd recently acquired Thunderjet. And the story of jet boating in the central basin down there is there's a family that created it, and there's 2 main organisations out there. They were 2 brothers that had a falling out, and they created these 2 separate businesses. So 2 brothers, the same mentality, same thinking, running the same boats in the same lake, offering pretty much the same thing. Also, part of the team that Luke acquired was the daughter of one of the founders. So there's some sensitivities involved here. There's actually this family connection, and she's now part of this team, part of this new culture. But Luke said, let's focus on this in the first instance. So what we did is we said, okay, we're going to take you through some design thinking, and then we're actually going to all go out for a jet boat ride. Let's see what it's like to actually do this experience. But firstly, what I want to ask you, so this is parked right there in Queenstown. One of the things around design thinking is how can you observe what it's like? How can you experience it? How can you engage with customers? But firstly, what do you see? When you see this picture, and I'm going to add to it too, there's some really big speakers inside this jet boat currently blaring out AC/DC's Back in Black. So what do you think? What do you see? Who's it for? Who would this be attracted to this? Young people? Old people? Bogans, yep. Quite right. I mean, I personally see, I thought Aussie V8 culture. It has that male V8, and there's what, twin V8s in these things, Luke? Yeah, twin V8s inside them, very powerful. So you see that, okay, cool. Now, it's not the same day, but just turning around the corner, taking a photo in the other direction, what do you see? Families. Different ages? Asians? Sorry? They're bored. They're all lining up for the Earnslaw. So they're lining up to get on the very sedate Earnslaw experience. But yeah, okay, cool. We see this is over here, this is the boat. There's the AC/DC playing. And we see that. Okay, cool. Bank those thoughts. So there we are. It's about June, I think, June, July, so it's getting quite cold. It's about 5 degrees. It's a grey day. And there we all are. And we get into the jet boat. And we sort of toddle off out into the harbour. And we get past the marker, and the driver buries it. Gets up to 80 kilometres an hour. Now, I was in the very back row of the boat. And as he buried it, everyone in the boat just went like this, because the wind was just ripping past you. I had my son's hat on, my young child, and I loved him, and I had my hat on, the glasses. The hat went voomf. My glasses were like this, going in my face. And everyone's like, oh my God. And we ripped down the river, through mist and fog, hoping the driver knew where he was going, because is there a log or a rock somewhere there? And we got back, and we got out, and everyone was just frazzled. Luke straight away said, that was a Shackleton experience. The CFO said, I'm warmer up that bloody mountain on my snowboard than I was in that jet boat. And everyone was just like, oh, rattled. Oh, my God, what was that about? So that was our experience. Okay, it's pretty full on. So the insight was jet boating. It's very fast, very expensive, very blokey. Lacking appeal to families or the slightly less white-knuckled adventurous. Jet boating, the assumptions of the category levers is that it must be 1 hour long. They're all the same. It's about maximum speed and thrills. It's for adult thrill seekers, kind of more blokey, and it's $140 to $170 per person. So for me as a dad, as a family of 5, you're talking $850 for 1 hour. Whew, that's pretty up there. Now we went back to the ranch. So 2 hours of design thinking 101, 1 hour jet boat ride, get back, let's start to knock out some ideas. So we prototyped all manner of ideas. We actually went big. What if we actually combined glamping with jet boating and multi-day and glamorous and wonderful? What if we made it super comfortable? What if we actually really dialed up make it more exhilarating? But one of the ideas we prototyped and tested all in one day was, let's target families. Let's dial down duration, price, speed and thrills. Let's dial up comfort and fun. So the concept was a short, sharp spin out for the whole family. You can see it there on the board. You probably can't read it, but 30-minute jet sprint. Adults $69, children $39. Next ride at 3:30. So what was happening previously is the boat would be weighted. They'd wait till they'd fill it up, and then they would go. You didn't know when the jet boat was going. But with this, now it's like a train. Every 30 minutes, the jet boat's going to go, and then we could actually reach out to sort of much wider customer groups. Now, Luke was taking this into a board meeting, so I just snapped it. It's basically showing bums on seats in the jet boat. And you can see on 1st of October when the new offering was launched, that we went from averaging, sort of 70-odd seats a day to about 150. And within 90 days, it went from 0 to 65% share of revenue. As Steve Jobs said, if you don't cannibalise your own offering, someone else will. And the reason why they do that is because they prefer it. But Luke will probably be able to tell you some of the stories around the internal resistance he faces from this, is that some of the jet boat drivers didn't think it was real jet boating. And also, they quite liked the fact they only had to go out 3 times a day, not sort of every half an hour. How can we actually use insights to power up some quick wins post-acquisition? So with Luke's business, S, so by looking at it from a customer's perspective, how is the industry talking to customers currently? You could just go to their websites, obviously. What is the core positioning and messaging and design that you see as a customer of these businesses? And in cybersecurity, they seem to be following all the same convention. Have some sort of matrix-esque imagery with fibre optic sort of lines going everywhere. Maybe show a person or a hand of a person or a city. Those were the common codes. And S was right smack and bang in the middle of it. They had these lovely stock images of people very happily using their iPads, feeling so secure because their cybersecurity's been taken care of. So we're right smack bang in the middle of it. So, okay, cool, that's happening. Everyone seems to be looking and feeling the same. And you look at the core propositions, this is a sector that very much thinks very highly of itself. Everyone is an expert leader. Everyone's talking about leadership in some way and how good they are and how strong they are. Sort of chest beating stuff going on there. Bit of the added effect there. But what we did is we started to actually went into this customer empathy exercise, and there's a number of insights that came out of this, but some top-line ones is that customers are being oversold and they're switching off. So this customer talked about there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't get hounded by some sort of salesperson selling a new wonderful cybersecurity solution to me. Very much that big, probably corporate American approach of creating a product and then you're just really selling it hard out into the market. And they are switching off. I probably get 5 emails a week that aren't from S, and do I read any of them? No. I say no, I don't look at them, I switch off. I don't even go to seminars anymore. I get sick of it. The industry is selling big, but big isn't necessarily good. So a lot of them were this big, probably American model, tech-centric model, talking about how we have these big solutions from these big companies and we're going to make it work for you in New Zealand. But this customer, the main quote there, is from one of the biggest, probably cybersecurity type clients inside New Zealand. And even they were saying, is that's too big for even New Zealand, even for me, even for the biggest of the big inside New Zealand. In this other quote, we get the benefits of scale, but when something goes wrong, you're in trouble because you get the sort of take a ticket mentality of, you had a cybersecurity breach and you're going to wait 36, 48 hours before something actually happens. You're left on your own. And so Spark, if you get a big enterprise product with them, but it might not be right, agile enough or fit for us. So there's a clear picture that they're being sold this big model and it's not right for us, even for the big players. There was a hunch inside S that we're flying under the radar and we're not that well known, and that is a problem. And so like this person talked about how the challenge with them is that if I talk to my boss and I say S said this, he's going to say, who? Who said that? And so they don't know about them. And he's an Aussie, and the German boss, his boss definitely wouldn't know them. What was more probably concerning is customers who'd been with S for 10, 12 years didn't actually know much about what they actually did. They would deal with them with one person on one product and didn't actually understand the full extent of the offering. And so I've been with them for many years, and I still just don't have that visibility. I'm sure they do a lot of good stuff, I just don't know what it is. And so there was obviously an insight around, let's actually look at how we can actually share what we actually do with people. We might get some runs on the board in that respect. And we're operating in a category that loves to bewilder, that has some really funky language going on that just loses people. They talk very technically, and sometimes the head of cybersecurity is just the good old IT guy or girl who's the sucker in charge of it. And they're getting all this information from the vendors that they've got to somehow convince the higher-ups why they should invest in it. But the language was opaque. And the first quote is talking about how even if we get past the language, when they provide the service to the customer, the cybersecurity firm provides all this information that they have to somehow muck their way through and try to make sense of and identify what's important and what isn't important. And then it's backed up by this issue about language. It's very difficult to push through and understand the language of the industry. But we also identified that there were some pockets of greatness inside S. So CRMAS, this product, again, this client saying this was a very, very up there client, very in tune. He was saying this comment that's very good. It seems to be being developed for this customer group in mind, and we have actively compared that with others, and they don't really stack up compared to this product. So what S had done off their own bat, excellent. That's something that's really important and is of real value to the customers. Related to that was all these other thoughts, all these other opportunities came out through the insights process around issues clients were having that weren't actually being addressed. This first one talked about, I got out of this offering to do with email firewalls because I didn't want to be actively managing it. The industry was saying, here, actively managed firewalls. He was after a managed service. And this thing about supply chain risk is a big risk for them. So the industry is saying, help your firm become more secure. And it's like, well, my firm is secure, but my partners aren't. I'm worried about that. Who's actually helping me take care of my supply chain and who's involved with my business? So all these insights around and opportunity areas were coming up through the process. So what do we do about it? We firstly elevated a clear angle and started to talk much simpler. So we wanted to own expertise, so big expertise, but we wanted to add in another thought about responsiveness, is that yes, you'll get expertise with us, but what's really important is we're going to be there for you and move heaven and earth to help you in these situations, both before and after something might occur. We started to kill the jargon, so these were the product names down the bottom. MDRS and CMAS and all these other ones. We created some really clear value propositions around what's the value of this in one sentence, which then led to a more proprietary name that the team could use. So a lot of the stuff besides the CRMAS were generic industry terms. So we wanted to create something that's a bit more ownable, a bit more punchy, backed up by a clear value proposition of what's important about this product. We started to double down on the wins. So just like with CRMAS, now Risk Radar, sorry, forgive me, I should know my own work. Thank you, Luke. We started to do an innovation sprint on a certain customer group, a key customer group. Okay, let's double down on that. Let's get some insights. Let's actually get the team involved in creating around that and start to then test and iterate that with the customers. And we got out there with a fresh face. We didn't do a full rebrand. It was just more of a cleanup. Just good visual design. Let's do a different imagery system. Let's make it much more simple. Let's make it much more punchy and clear and bold. And use language. Like even the use of this headline is reasonably early stage provocative in the industry. There's a lot of people sort of saying we'll keep you free from breaches, but where the industry is heading and the customers are saying this, that we saw in the insights process is that breaches are inevitable. It's more a case of how you're actually going to deal with it, hence the responsiveness pitch in the brand. Lastly, how can we use consumer insights to drive growth into new markets? So this is with a consumer products brand, Westgold, for Westland Milk Products. Been working with them for a number of years now. Now, when you stack up all the brands inside New Zealand, you know, butter, it's golden, and golden is good, so therefore we should have golden packets. And if you're really fancy, you'll start to dial up grass-fed, and so you'll probably have some grass in there and maybe a cow, because milk comes from cows and cows make cream, and cream makes butter. So there was convergence. Everyone was kind of largely feeling the same. Obviously, if you wanted to be more fancy pants, you started to make it a foil-looking thing, and you feel much more goldy or more basic budget. Now, Westgold had been going for a number of years, not a long time, but was already in multiple markets throughout the world. But the situation they were in is that in different markets, they actually had different brand representation. So there's New Zealand and the core packs on the left. And there's China, looks quite different. And then in the middle, as some sort of quirk of history and through previous sales activity, they were very, very big in Azerbaijan, as perchance has would have it. But so the challenge was, how do we actually now create a more aligned global strategy for the brand? And the focus was Asia Pacific, and we were very far along that route. We actually had developed a brand strategy, we were already testing ideas. But the team had been working in the US for quite a long time trying to get into Walmart. And if you know the category there, if you're not in, they have these cycles like every 2 years, and if you're not in, then it's another 2 years before they'll even consider you. All of a sudden, Walmart became a live prospect. And so it's a case of how do we actually now create a brand that's focused on the US market, because that's the big kahuna growth opportunity until about a few days ago. So how do we do that? So the basic approach, and this can be applied to all manner of things. You immerse yourself in the situation, you quickly form a point of view, a hypothesis. What's the market hypothesis for this category? So in this particular instance, how do we actually go to the US? Who would we target? You then prototype up some thinking and do some empathy customer research with clients in market while running thinking past them. That helps you zero in on likely solutions and a strategy, and then you validate and refine it as you go, before and after launch. On the left is part of the Instagram feed from Westgold at this time. Now it's beautiful, it's exquisite, it's very feminine, it's very baking centric. But by looking at the market and what are the trends and things happening, cooking and baking is getting wider, it's getting younger, it's male and female. So it's a case of we don't want to lose that audience, but we need to reach out to a wider audience, particularly in the US. So how do we do that? We roughed up some thinking, and then we used a mobile ethno tool. Mobile ethnography is mobile phone-based research. You can ask connect with customers in market and get them to do tasks. So we asked them to share their thinking on certain products. We got them to do a search for a new product in this thing and take us through how you search. We got to understand how they would look for things and how they zeroed in on things. We got them to show us your fridge and talk us through all the dairy products in your fridge. Us in New Zealand, we're actually a little bit arrogant. We think we're big dairy consumers. My God, the Americans, they're massive. And I'm not talking about volume, I'm talking about variety as well. They have huge range, size, quantity, quality of dairy inside their fridges. It was mind-blowing. We also identified that what we would call margarine, they call butter. So they call it, it's olive oil butter. So the thing about saying this is butter, it means you're actually right alongside margarines. You can't just sort of talk about that. So all these things started to come out. But what we also did as part of that process, so you lead with the empathy research, you understand their worlds, you understand how they live there, and understand how they shop and what they look for. We also prototyped up some story territory. So if we were to do a brand story, what would we do? And imagine this, if your brand story is a burger, territories are kind of like you've broken it out. So there's the buns, and then there's the meaty bits, and then there's the vegetable bits. So we thought these are all elements of our story, but let's actually build a story around all the elements to find out ultimately what is most important in what order. How would you put your burger back together? So from this, so just taking one step back, so Life Made Tasty is around making life more interesting, more fun, more enjoyable. Simply Good is focusing on simplicity. What if we actually focus on really being really simple, natural? The World's Wildest Dairy is focusing on, so West Gold comes, its base is Hokitika on the west coast. So it's a very wild, natural environment. So we focus on what if we talk about the world's wildest dairy? Related to that, what if we talk about a distinctive ethos or attitude born of the place that we are from, which is made the West Coast way? So we got a clear steer around which were the lead territories and which should be support. So you can see D was the strongest, and in a way C is part of D, so you can easily fold those two together. But then the simple natural became the secondary conversation. So that was great intel in terms of these are the things we should focus on in market first, followed by these things. Now we went a bit nuts here, but we also roughed up packaging territories. We went, what if we actually made it really quite arty, sort of more really craft-based, really beautiful design? What if we actually dialed up elements of the natural elements of the West Coast, the rain and the grass? What if we dialed up the wider environment? What if we dialed up the cows and the animals, etc.? And you can see in there, C is actually their current packaging. What if we actually ran with the existing packaging in the US? So you can do that. You can just rough stuff up and say, and this is all done within 2 days. We're not talking about agonising design here. You just get some designers involved in it. Let's rough this thinking up and let's get it out there and see where we should focus our attention. And we didn't ask people what they liked. We asked them, which of these packaging most aligns with the story you most liked? So if that's our story, which packaging design is most aligned to that, is the best representation? Where we got to was this option here, and you can see the quotes. Has the visual beauty that goes along with the description of the country. It's lovely to have a big picture of what's described. Is what really sets it apart is the area from where it's from. I think showing that's great. The free-flowing water and open range is exactly what I imagined. So we've got a clear steer that this is actually something quite standout. And you also cast your mind back to, certainly in New Zealand, there's the yellowness. In America, the other insight too was the butter category. There's a strong driver around heritage. So there's a lot of heritage brands, and people grew up with this brand, so there's a real strong connection. So that's what we're up against as well, whereas this is different in both markets. The ultimate insight out of going to the US was that taste is king to the US consumers. So it's not about how the butter's made necessarily or the feel, it's taste. But the West Coast, where we're from, is our ace. That's our differentiator. That's what we have to really dial up in everything we do. So we created a story. The ultimate story is where nature leads the way. Our home is the remote west coast of New Zealand, South Island, famous for its rugged coastlines, towering mountains, pouring rain, and lush grass. Down here, nature's firmly in charge. We know that real is good and that the very best ingredients come from nature. So if you love real good taste, West Gold will take you all the way to the West Coast. So a story that is grounded firmly in the coast, about how the coast is informed in attitude and is ultimately linked to great taste. Now, as I said, FMCG firms are very strong in market research. So they went out and started to test this in all key markets around the world. So not just the US, but also Australia, a number of Asian markets as well that they're already in. And these were the results. So firstly, net appeal. So overall net appeal was 85%. Now the market researcher boss said that's just ridiculously high. He says 40% is great, 50% is awesome. So he said 85%, I don't see that. And so we created this for one market, but you can see we absolutely aced it in the US. In terms of the core target audience of younger US consumers, 97% net appeal. And Asian consumers, 95%. So even though the US was our focus, we managed to ace it across other markets as well, because the consumers are obviously connected. They read things on the interweb, and they start to talk and understand each other. That then led to the packaging design. How do we actually elevate the coast through our packaging, through quite a bold new system? So you can see that we actually elevated the coast big time. Actual real photography, talking about the West Coast, the natural environment, and linking to that taste. We then added a spirit. How do we actually dial up a real authentic attitude to inform communications? Now, if anyone knows the West Coasters, they're pretty frank people, pretty blunt, pretty honest, really straight up. Down-to-earth mavericks, don't like bullshit. And our brand was around, we're for real, we're against fake. Now, this was actually created in the real, when plant-based was really having its moment and Beyond Meats were going nuts. So everything was talking about plant-based, but the flip side of that is that it's all engineered inside a lab. Now, we're not against such things, but ultimately we're for real things. We believe real comes from nature, real is good. And we're against fake thinking, we're against fake attitudes, but we love natural craft. So we actually created a number of concepts which we then went out to market to test. So the first one was let's look at, if we were against fake and all this manufactured food that's coming out, so made by cows, not chemists. And this, we ran this past a number of American consumers, and it's like, oh great, love that. They straight away got it. This one, sort of having a bit of fun with ourselves. From the parts of New Zealand that rice milk hasn't reached yet. This next one was our real rangefinder about how far we could push things. They used this rather judiciously. So this was at the Wild Food Festival on the West Coast. But in terms of having a bit of fun and poking a bit of fun at ourselves as well as others, this was great. We knew that this is how far we could push it, our rangefinder concept. Having a bit of fun at Christmas. So if you're a West Coaster, you see things others don't, and how sort of weird and funky Christmas can be. And in terms of, you think about where we were as a brand, in terms of being very feminine, very mumsy, which is fine, let's actually talk about pleasure. And if you've ever seen Man Can Cook NZ, you can see they can have a lot of fun with it. The guy smothering butter all over his muscular body. So these are some numbers. So over a couple-year period, they had a 60% increase in sales volume. You see they had a 97% increase in sales revenue, so they were starting to command more value for their products. In Australia, went nuts, 200% growth. They started to have Australian supermarkets come to them saying, we want you to create a new product like this. They actually had customers requesting them to actually create MPD to certain specifications. And in the US, 107% growth. They're already in 1,100 stores. They've just signed a major distribution partnership, which gives them access to 30,000 stores. So at the moment, things are looking very good in the US. So in short, if you're looking to acquire, or you have acquired, what does it look and feel like from a customer's perspective? How can you get into their worlds? Observe from their perspective. What do you see? What does it feel like? Talk to them, experience it, empathise with what they're trying to do, what their challenges are, what they love, what they don't love. Infer, use your nous, back up your thinking with it. Identify what are the category levers. Where is their convergence? If you can identify category levers, you can start to muck around with the levers. You can dial things up, you can dial things down, you can add things. If you can understand the codes, you can understand where you can start to have a bit of fun, be creative. And ultimately interpret, use it to inform your thinking, create off the back of it, test, iterate and validate with customers. Always, just keep looping back. It's not a one-off thing, it's a constant sort of toing and froing. So if you want, please feel free to ask me any questions. If you email me and you tell me what category you're in, I can give you 5 killer questions to ask customers. I'll nuance them based on who you're connecting with and what sort of category you're in. But I say, ultimately, get out of the ranch, get your thinking in front of people, learn from them, have an external view to inform your thinking. Thanks so much.